Where is my pen? There is my pen. Hello. Welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today is a very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things. And on this pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things, we have many stuff and things to talk about, including upcoming videos, things that you can look forward to on Stuff and Things and Stuff and Things Plays. I will give you an update on my Casio GW-5000U, what is this? G-Shock digital watch. I did a review of this several weeks back. I've been wearing it for a while. It's actually been a couple months now, I think. I'm going to talk about a very cool documentary that I watched that you should check out as well. And then, of course, we will have your questions. I hope I have them. Yes, your questions, comments, and feedback in hashtag askstuffandthings. Oh, we'll be talking about Old Ironsides by Dan Tees as well when we talk about upcoming videos. My voice got very low there. Stay tuned. Okay, upcoming videos. What can you look forward to on Stuff and Things and Stuff and Things Plays? Well, this week, coming up, I will be doing a box opening of kind of a weird thing, something I've never done on the channel before, but I think it's pretty cool. It is this. Can you see that? It is a 1/72nd scale Hobbymaster diecast model of a, is it Lockheed Martin? I think it's Lockheed Martin, F-22 Raptor. Those have been in the news recently because they keep shooting down unidentified flying objects over the US and Canada. And I always liked them, the plane, as a child, and so I got this model. And I think it's pretty cool, and I do an unboxing of it. Kind of weird, I know, for the show. Nothing that I've done before, but I thought it was neat, and I thought you guys might like to see it. Things are falling. So that is what we're going to be doing this week. The week after that, we will do our first impressions video for Dan Tees' Old Ironsides. Now, this is one that was specifically requested. I think just Dan Tees in general have been requested quite a few times, but then this blend in particular was called out as a really good blend, and I just recorded the first impressions video of this. What the heck? Where have you guys been? Why hasn't anyone told me how good these things were? This blend is really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Now I know, it's just a first impressions video, and I can't say whether or not I truly like this blend until I've had a couple weeks to live with it and do the full review. But I haven't had, I'm trying to remember the last time I had a super, super positive first impressions video like this one. I don't want to give it away or anything. I want you to still watch the video, but I was really impressed by this. So I can't remember the name of the person who specifically said that I should do Old Ironsides, but thank you. I'm really enjoying this, or I did really enjoy it in the first impressions video, and I need to look into more blends by Dan Tees. Come on, you guys got to tell me these things. So good. Also, the Elden Ring series is continuing every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. For the foreseeable future, I think I'm close to the end. I'm not totally sure. I'm over a month ahead of the videos that you guys have been seeing. I think we're close to the end, but I kind of don't want the game to ever end. I am looking forward to playing something new on the channel, but the game is amazing. The series is fun. Check it out. All right, gang. So a couple months back, I did a review of the Casio G-Shock GW-5000U. I think there was like a JF something on the end of that to show that it was for the Japanese market. This is a square Casio G-Shock, and I had never had a G-Shock before. I talked about in the review how I had had several Casio digital watches when I was a kid. They were popular back then, way back then, and I'd always kind of, I don't know, turned my nose up a little bit at the idea of a digital watch ever since I had become an adult. And I have that nice automatic, or not automatic, manual wind Bulova Accutron Gemini watch that I wear most of the time, or that I did wear most of the time. But I looked into these, and I can't even remember how I first got onto the idea of getting a G-Shock. But if you watch the video, you will know that I actually got a better G-Shock than I had intended on buying. It has a steel case, and most of them do not. Most of them have a resin case within like a stamped metal back. This one actually has a steel screw-down case, so it's all steel underneath the resin plastic that covers it. It has solar power, so it charges through the power of the sun and ambient light. It has a atomic clock, so it picks up radio waves from the atomic clock, which I believe is in Colorado in the US. It's on different places on different continents. So it sets itself automatically to the perfect atomic time, all sorts of modes, world time, timers, alarms, all that good stuff. I have been wearing this now pretty much all the time, and I love it. I love this watch. It's kind of the perfect watch. Whether you like the look of it or not, and I think it looks pretty cool and retro, I enjoy the look. It is so functional, you never have to think about it. I have the hourly beep on here, the hourly chime. It's just quiet enough that you'll just notice it. If I'm sleeping, it doesn't wake me up. Doesn't wake up Diamond either, hopefully. She hasn't said anything about it. But it's just great throughout the day where you hear a little teet teet, and you're like, oh, okay, it's 4 o'clock now. I love that. That's great. I love the fact that I never have to set it and it is always perfectly in time, because I know it doesn't really matter. I know we have a clock on our phone right there, and that's pretty much the same. It's not quite as accurate as a radio-controlled watch like this is, though, because there's some lag going, you know, when you're going over cellular signals or the internet. This is perfect, and it sets itself every single night, pretty much. Let's see. It set itself last night at 12:03 this morning. It set itself automatically, which is just fantastic. I have never had to worry about this running out of juice. It's on the high right now. It indicates high for the battery. I don't know if you'd be able to see that or not, but there are little dashes under there, and it has high, medium, low. It has always been around medium or high, and I haven't done anything to like specifically put it out in the sun or anything to charge it. It's a great weight. This is the steel case version, so I'm sure it's heavier than the resin versions. And I did get this combi bracelet, this plastic bracelet for it. But it's just so convenient. It's so nice. It's water resistant to, I can't even remember. I think it was like 300 feet. Might be wrong about that, but deeper than I will ever go with this thing. It's just perfect. It's a perfect watch, and I love it. And now it makes me kind of want more Casio G-Shocks of the square variety like this. So several people have asked me to do an update on this watch, whether or not I was still enjoying it, whether I was still wearing it. And yes, I wear this pretty much all the time. I don't wear it when I'm actually working usually, because I don't want to damage it. I know this is kind of supposed to be a beater watch, but this is a more expensive version of the Casio beater G-Shock. So I have a cheaper Casio digital that I wear just when I'm actually working, because there's just so much that could happen to this watch while I'm working. But pretty much any other time I'm wearing this watch, and my Bulova has kind of been relegated for a while. I don't think I've wound it for some time. I should probably do that. Probably should break that out and wear it again, but this thing is amazing. Love it. Casio G-Shock GW-5000U. Wonderful watch. Now, I watched a documentary with Diamond recently. I don't even know why we watched this. I think she had heard about it maybe on a podcast or something. It came out in 2017, and it is called Monkey Business: The Adventures of Curious George's Creators. It's a documentary by Emma Ryan Yamazaki, 2017. We watched it on the Criterion channel, but you can rent it on Amazon. I think it's $2.99 or $3.99 to rent it through Amazon Prime. And it was so good. It was so good. I think Curious George is pretty universal. I know that, you know, most people in the US have heard of Curious George, the Curious Little Monkey, a series of books that were written by supposedly H.A. Rey, but we'll get into that. but I think he's traveled around the world, I'm pretty sure, so I'm hoping that most of you who are international viewers will have heard of Curious George, but I think the first book came out in the 40s, probably like 43, 44, 42, something like that, and they went all the way, the original run of the books went through the 60s. I think late 60s is when the last book came out. And now, you know, they have modern authors doing versions of it, and there have been cartoons and all sorts of things. But those original books were big for me when I was a child. I read all those books. I loved all the books. And this documentary details the rather surprising story behind how the books came to be published and the people who wrote them. It was basically a couple, Hans and Margaret Ray. And they were German Jews who were born in Hamburg, I believe. And I don't want to go through the entire story of the documentary, but they were both born in Hamburg. They kind of knew each other as children. Then Hans Ray ended up moving to Brazil, and through strange, weird machinations, they ended up together. They got married. They ended up in Paris, and they were living in Paris. They were doing advertising. Hans was drawing. She was helping with the copy and just kind of helping with all the business endeavors that they were doing. And he got these ideas to write these children's books. He had written one in French that was about these 8 little monkeys or something like that in a zoo. The publisher really liked it, and they wanted more, but they said, I can't remember if the publisher said or if Hans Ray himself had decided that he was just going to focus on the little monkey, the little baby monkey. He named him Fifi for the French market, and he started writing this book. But before it could actually be published, and this was the first Curious George book, the Nazis invaded, and they were invading France. And basically, a day before they marched into Paris, Hans and Margaret escaped on bicycles, and they basically were bicycled to the south of France, got on a train, got to Portugal, and from Portugal were able to get on a boat and go to Brazil, and from Brazil through, I think they tried for quite some time with the American consulate to get a green card to go to the US. They finally did, carrying that manuscript of the Curious George book with them. And the documentary deals with all of that, all their history, all their backstory, the 2 very interesting personalities that they bring to the table. She was much more abrasive, maybe, and he was very mild-mannered. It talks a lot about just their experience kind of getting to the point where they met each other, but then also their experience once they got to the US, how the books became published. And there are all these really great animation sequences where they animate some of the story kind of in the style of Curious George or reminiscent of the Curious George books. It's just lovely. It's kind of sad and kind of traumatic because of the things that happened to them, but it's also just a lovely story of 2 people who found each other and who ended up doing something really cool in the world through adversity. So I highly recommend Monkey Business, The Adventures of Curious George's Creators, a 2017 documentary by Emma Ryan Yamazaki. You can find it on Amazon Prime, or just do a Google search. I'm sure you'll find some places where it is streaming. Highly recommend it. Check it out. All right, gang, but now it is time for hashtag #AskStuffandThings. Remember, if you have a question for me and you would like it answered on the Sunday Stuff and Things, tweet at SAT Bradley with the hashtag #AskStuffandThings. You can also write to me via Patreon and go to the front of the line if you are a Patreon supporter. You can leave me a super thanks and go to the front of the line on YouTube, or just leave a YouTube comment with your feedback, questions, comments, whatever, and I will go through all of those and pick out the ones that I will feature on the Sunday Stuff and Things. So first, via YouTube, this is from Roger Stray Dog. Roger says, I have searched YouTube and other sites for an answer to what pipe tease would be a good one for a new pipe esser. And I've received answers and information of a wide variety. So much so that it's almost of no value. There does not seem to be any pattern. Do you have a suggestion or 2 or 3 that might be of use? Easy to find and palatable to someone new to the craft. One person said to get the Amphora sample pack. Would that be a good start? Maybe do a video on good choices for the novice. Thanks. Thank you, Roger. It's really tough to point you in the direction of a good beginner blend because I don't know what you're going to like. I'm going to suggest two different blends for you that are not necessarily even the best blends, but they might be good for someone new to the hobby. I'm going to say Orlik Golden Sliced as a straight Virginia flake. It's not my favorite straight Virginia flake, but it's very good. It's innocuous. I know that maybe doesn't sound like I'm recommending it very much, but I think for someone just starting out and trying to get their head around flavors and seeing what they like, Orlik Golden Slice is a good example of a straight Virginia flake. Then I'm also going to recommend Peterson Standard Mixture. It is a very basic, very dependable English mixture. It's not super strong. It's not too anything. It's just kind of nice middle of the road English mixture. So that will give you an idea of what a Latakia blend is like. And then from there, you can branch out. If anyone else has any more suggestions, leave them in the comments below, please. Thank you. Next, from Jack Mercer, tell us about your interest in Japanese culture. You know, I included this, but that is far too long. My answer would be far too long. Let me write this down. I have a pen, luckily. We will say my interest in Japanese culture. Jack Mercer. Is it Jack Mercer? Jack Mercer. And Jack, I will tackle this probably next week because it's going to have to be its own topic by itself. Next, we have feedback from last week's Sunday Stuff and Things. Who is this from? Oh, this was actually an email. This is from Chris. So it was regarding what blends, speaking of Japan, what blends are available in Japan because I've had conflicting information, and I got quite a few good responses about that on the video. One of which was from Chris, who says, "Hi Bradley, I assume that YouTube would have hated it if I posted this link in the comment section, so I'm reaching out via email. This is my go-to online store," and he has a URL for kagayasmokeweb.com. You can click through the list of blenders and find the products in drop-downs. It is a pretty good representation of what is available here in Japan. If this shop only has 3 GLPs blends, then I pretty much know that any other shop in the country will have the same 3 or less. Let me know if you ever plan to visit. Kind regards, Chris. Thank you, Chris. And I checked it out, and it did seem like there was a pretty good variety of different blends, but then I heard from other people as well that it seems as though there's kind of 1 or 2 distributors, and they get the blends, and all the shops get the blends from them. And so it's only what that distributor or those distributors have, and it's not a super wide variety, but it's not horrible either. So it was kind of interesting to hear that from people who were actually on the ground in Japan, and I definitely do plan on going to Japan. So I'll let you know, Chris. Next, from John F. So this is referring to the question I got as to why a particular person couldn't taste the pipe blends when they were trying them. A lot of people seem to think that I was having trouble tasting the blends. No, it was someone who had written in and had the question, why can't I taste anything? This person says, John says, many possible reasons why you can't taste it. I have noticed that if I any pipe too hot, I can't taste it. Possible reasons for that could be as simple as packing too loosely or even too tightly. Drawing on the pipe too fast or too frequently can also cause it to get too hot. That's why you hear people talking about a cool S. Stuffed sinuses are a problem for me. Some days, probably most days, I wake up with my sinuses so clogged I know I have no chance of tasting any pipe S. Some days I can feel that my sinuses are clear and I know I'll be able to taste the pipe. Probably a lot of other reasons you can't taste it. Just keep trying and experimenting with your packing techniques and drying techniques. Good advice, John. Next, from Stephen Ford. I think you're right, Bradley. Too many variables to make an assessment really, but moisture content could be one of the principal reasons for not tasting the tea. Contrary to this, I have found great taste at both ends of the spectrum, relatively moist and dry, both giving excellent flavor and paradoxically at times no or little flavor at all. I have spent an inordinate amount of time tracking down what helps or hinders this, and I have come to the conclusion it's the total delivery system as well as the tea you are essing. More good advice from Steven there. I definitely notice more if it's too moist, as I mentioned in the response last week, that it can be more steam than smoke, and that can be an issue. Next, from Mark. I think the taste issue is not a case of tasting nothing, more like just tasting a generic tea taste, rather than tasting the flavors reviewers frequently claim to be picking up on. Bread, plum, fruit, grass, hay, etc. I'm tasting something, but I can't say I identify it as any of these. It just tastes of tea. Not brilliant, not terrible, just blah. I understand the flavors reviewers pick up are subtle, so I'm assuming it's a case of reparation, I'm assuming you mean preparation, and thinking about what is actually being tasted and then associating that taste with a known taste, like bread or the smell of grass, maybe. That's my experience. And Mark, yeah, thanks for chiming in with that. And I think that it is definitely true that reviewers can get a little too poetic when describing flavors, and maybe people who are new to the hobby get their hopes up too much, thinking they're going to be tasting these super, super distinctive and obvious flavors when they are much more subtle usually, and you have to kind of pick them out. And so maybe they're expecting too much and then feeling like they're not tasting the things that everyone else is tasting. So good point there, Mark. Next, on the How to Ream Your Pipe video, we have a response from Agriarch. I maintain my pipes at around 1 millimeter of cake and usually clean them slightly with a pipe tool at the end of the day. I don't need reaming for a long time this way. All right, Agriarch. From Stephen Ford, perfect ream, Bradley. After you get to the correct depth on the initial reamer, I am wondering if it's possible to mark the side of the handle temporarily at the top of the bowl so you have a gauge mark on the next step to go up to go by. Or is that overthinking on my part? Thank you, Stephen. I answered you on YouTube, but with me, if you guys didn't watch the video, I was showing how I start with a smaller diameter reamer, I go down all the way to the heel of the bowl, and then I get a larger diameter and then go further. I don't start with the larger one, I kind of work my way up to a larger gauge reamer. And with me, I mean, it could be useful to mark the handle, basically the depth that you want to go to so you don't go too far into the heel, but I just look. I go a little ways, take a look, go a little more, take a look. Just make sure you check your work often so you're not actually reaming briar as opposed to just cake. All right, gang, thank you so much for the feedback and the questions. Please keep them coming in. It is super useful to have your feedback and to interact with you and have cool things to talk about on the shows. But now it is time for the very best part of the show, and that is where we thank our Patreon supporters. Remember, if you would like to support the channels on Patreon, there is a link in the description box below, and it is super helpful and very much appreciated. It helps pay for the fancy camera that is filming this video, the lights that are shining upon me, blends and other such things for review, and things that I can show you on the channels. And every week, I like to shout out those who support the channels at $25 or more a month. People like Kirk Crompton, Glenn Dunnington, Jason Buckner, Gloria Phillips, MDoftheNorth, David Gaudreau, Nick Papageorgio, John Tice, and Finn O'Hagan. And of course, the Maniac, the crazy person who supports the channels at $100 a month, Bob Magee. And of course, we will never forget our good friend and dearly departed Hall of Fame member, Peter Straub. Gang, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for checking out the box opening of the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor by Hobbymaster this Wednesday. The first impressions video of Dan T's Old Ironsides next Wednesday. Elden Ring every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday on Stuff and Things Plays, and lots more good stuff to come. But until next time, until we meet again, I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things on a very pleasant Sunday. Stuff and Things. I'll see you later. Curious George, the curious little monkey. He is full of curiosity. Curious George, the curious little monkey. Why is he curious? Soon you will see. Doom doodle doom 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 doodle doodle doo.